Welcome to another episode of Everyday Badassery. I'm your host, Christine Lozada. This is a podcast meant to inspire you to be just 1% more badass today than you were yesterday. And one of the most badass things that I think we can all do is to show up exactly who we are in the world. Because if you are not authentically and vulnerably yourself, it is very difficult to attract your people and other people like you into your life. And one of the people that I think is a both amazing connector of people and most authentic to herself is Vanessa. And I had a chance to meet her at Camp Indie. I'm so excited. Let's bring her in.
I'm Vanessa Tharp. I am an educator turned entrepreneur and event planner. And I love people and I love exploring the world. And I'm so grateful to have met you at Camp Indie last
Which was
year.
such a special event for me, right?
Oh,
I think
great.
about how difficult it is, especially as a traveler who's constantly on the go, to like meet the real ones. Because so frequently I'm interacting with people over social media and then I meet them in person and I'm just like, yo, you ain't anything like what I thought you were going to be. But you were one of the realest people that I've met in 2023 and was super excited to spend time with you at Camp Indie. And one of the things that I love about you is you wear your heart and your vulnerability on your sleeve, which is something we're going to dive into today. But where I would love to start was something that I was inspired by, that I read that you had put out a few years ago. And it was something that inspired your road trip. So take us back to that time. Where were you and what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, well, first, just thank you for those kind words. And I feel the same, I think realness and authenticity attracts that. And in a world where it's so easy to just put up an image or a vibe or have this online persona, when you really meet in person, it's like what you see is what you get with me. And I feel the exact same way about you and just grateful for our friendship. But yes, let's take it back. Let's take it back to maybe a little bit more challenging time. It was the peak pandemic. And I would kind of even go back to like 2018. I finally had the courage to leave my life as a high school leadership teacher, educator, stability, the respect of being a teacher. And I loved it. I loved the kids. I loved my people. And I just knew there was something more out there and something different for me. I had definitely struggled a little bit at times. Just balancing it all, being there for everybody and myself. And so
First of all, tell me the signals. How did you start to know that like maybe it's time for something else? Because especially in a world of stability, like I was like, for me, I backtracked to my 2018. I was feeling real good in the corporate world. Like I was making my way up, like just bought a condo in San Francisco. Like all the things were right. But there were signals. There were signals where I was like, yo, I think there's something else. Like there is something else. What was that for you?
Oh, you have to listen to like your body, your heart, your soul.
Yeah.
Like I love teaching. I was teaching for, over like 13 years. It was great, but there was more out there for me. I was being called to do things. Let's say in education, I was working on these 6 or 7 skills. Well, I wasn't showcasing, skills 8 through 12 or 8 through 13. I wanted to intertwine that. And so I had a real slow journey. Goodness, I bet it was back in 2012, I don't even know. I started going to the World Domination Summit with Chris Guillebeau, learning, about community and adventure and living a life of nonconformity, a little bit different. And then that for 5, 6, 7 years was me showing up as a teacher, but also a person who loved to travel, who had side hustles, who worked on nonprofit boards, who was always creating, doing, bringing people together and dabbling outside my professional life, in my personal life, for these other things. And so eventually, I ended up leaving a great job in Portland, Oregon, heading to another great education-focused job in Seattle, Washington. Loved them both. And it was the September of 2017, knowing I was leaving, hopefully in 2018, where I took the leave of absence letter and I wrote it out and I said, I'm going to put this, and I just put it under I didn't, talk to a lot of people about it. It's a private, personal journey. And I put it under my keyboard and I just knew it was there. So when I kept being called to do something else, to go somewhere else, when my migraines would be too much, when my anxiety, when I was missing out on friends and family and personal things that lit me up for work or because I was too tired because of work and how I was so invested and couldn't create boundaries well. And so 2018 came around. I went and I, gave my letter in tears to my principal at the time. She was amazing, great leader. And she totally got it. She's like, you have given your heart and soul to education, to our school. Like, go take time for you, do what's next. And so I was like, all right, I'm doing it. I'm going, I'm making the jump. And, there was definitely people who were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to buy a
Yeah, of
one-way ticket
course.
somewhere. I got some money saved up. Like, look at all these other people, quote unquote, doing it. So can I. Like, I will never be hungry. I will never be homeless. I have people who love and support me. I'm willing to sacrifice and not have a traditional home. I didn't do my hair for like years. I was like, I'm saving money, buy that box dye, like whatever, right? Like I still only shop at Costco and St. Vinny's. Like, I don't need a bunch of like fancy stuff. I drove the same vehicle for years. And so anyway, 2018 rolls around. I leave, there's tears of happiness. Telling my students at the time, I call my students, my kids, it was hard, but they were like, Miss Tharp, we're so proud of you. You're practicing what you're preaching. You're doing what you encourage us to do. Like, you're not feeling your best and your most lit up self. Go figure that out. And I was just like, okay, like chills even again, telling you that story 5 years later to know like I was doing something right. And so 2018, 2019 into 2020, like it's this blur of events and consulting and coaching and pivoting and opportunities and working at, the Gates Foundation and Amazon and cool big agencies and connecting with people like our friends Jason and Travis and all these great entrepreneurs and creators and like making it work, making it happen. Now that at times had highlights and successes, but at times it was still like a little bit lonely or a little bit confusing. And so that's where I would seek out masterminds, events like we've discussed, events that I help create, because that's where you find your people, you find your community. And because I'd had such a long runway up to putting in the leave of absence, I already had those people, supporting me and cheering me on. And so, yeah, I did all kinds of great stuff for a couple years. And then, as we know, the pandemic hit in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did my professional life of events, gathering people, creating amazing experiences, basically get told, canceled, stopped, contracts pulled left and right. That also is my personal joy. I love going to sporting events. I love going to barbecues. I love, wine tasting, like places where you gather. We couldn't do that either. So my personal fun and excitement, my professional livelihood, were all paused, and it was a pretty hard, scary time for me. I was alone in a, 18-foot by 18-foot studio in Portland, Oregon, and it was very locked down. And I got referred because of a relationship I had to work with an emergency response team in Multnomah County. Great for someone who wants to know all the things because you're with all the head epidemiologists and stuff, but really hard and sad to see what veterans and the houseless population and migrants and, everyday people are dealing with, plus those who might have some disadvantages in our society.
What was your biggest learning from participating in that experience? Like, what's one thing that you've held with you today?
Well, I think that there's two ways to approach a global incident like that, which can even be small scale to, let's say, a wedding or a party or something. You either can go in with a plan and pivot it slightly. Hopefully you're pretty, you got it 10% to change, 20%. Or you go in every day going, we don't know what to do. It's crazy. It's chaotic. And that is an energy and a chaoticness and a drama that some people thrive off of. The older I get, the more I recognize that is not me. I want happy, healthy, calm people. There are stressful situations, and it is scary at times in public emergencies, disasters. But most of the time, we're not dealing in those situations. So how do we do it with kindness, calmness, and supporting each other? Because you don't know what people are or aren't going home to. You don't know what people's livelihoods is or isn't at stake. And so that's, I think, to me, in the peak of the pandemic and in working in those situations, And now I remind myself when I'm doing some crazy big conference or event, like what's really important here? How do we treat people? How do we support people? How are we calm and kind and focus on that? Because that never goes out of style. That's never wrong,
Yeah. How we react to things is in our control and is our choice. And I think one of the things that was really difficult for me to accept the first time I heard it was that stress is a choice. We choose what we will or will not be stressed out about. Like, even for me, like I had a recent situation, which we'll skip on this today's podcast, in which I almost died. And in that moment, I could have focused on that and been like angry about the situation, like reacting to the situation, or I could choose how much stress I was going to put into this incident. And instead I chose to going back to the like, wow, that was a moment. Like, what can I do to be kind, be helpful in this situation and get myself out of the current situation I was in? And instead focused on that, because otherwise it would have been a very stressful situation. I'm like, yo, I'm just going to be lucky and be happy right now that I am still breathing right now. And let's focus on that and get through this. Because if I chose the stress route, that day would have been real freaking different. Okay,
Oh,
so that was a left
and
turn.
no, but part of your ability to do that probably, Christine, is because you surround yourself with good people. You have the positivity, you have the resources, right? So I feel like, for me, the more that I learn and what's a kind of a long lead up is, in 2021, spring of 2021, I was not doing well. I was alone. I had kind of done my 6-7 months at at the emergency response group, incident command. I was piecing together some work and opportunities, small things in the fall and winter. I was living off savings, and it was winter. It was dark. It was hard. It's traditionally a rough time of me due to the loss of my father, and so that January, February, March, I know is a tough time. And I just didn't have any resources, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't healthy. And quite frankly, I was going to tell some people I know and love to, just peace out. I'm done. And that's not me either. And so I loaded up my car. I threw some stuff in a couple of, backpacks, an IKEA bag, and I just started driving. And
Wait, you
it
didn't have a
was
plan.
Oh no, which is
I'm like,
hilarious because if you
hell
know me,
yes.
I plan
Oh, I like
everything.
this.
Like I was like, I have to GTFO. Like I
Yeah.
gotta go. I cannot be in this like lockdown apartment anymore. It's just a hard time. And so I started driving, and it ended up being about 23 states, almost 10,000 miles. I did like a giant figure eight. I went to New Orleans for the first time. I went over to North Carolina. I went to a friend's amazing Easter bash in Nebraska with his family. And it was just, I surprised my cousin at her birthday on a beach in LA. I went up to
So
Montana
nice.
to an event, and I just drove and I listened to music and I talked to strangers and I connected with different friends and family along the way. Sometimes I spent the night in the back of my Honda CRV. My safety tip is I would drive. And because when you're alone and you're like, I didn't have a ton of money. Like I didn't have a lot of work coming in, I'd spent a bunch of my savings to try to just make ends meet. And I was like, I gotta go. And just like cruising around, taking pictures, exploring stuff. And so I would drive, I'd go find a nice place to eat dinner. Of course, talk to the random strangers next to me, the waitress, the cook, whoever. And then I would like drive 3 or 4 more hours and it would get dark. And then I would find a hospital. And
Mm.
I would stay in the back of my Honda in the hospital parking lot about 11 o'clock midnight. I'd send my mom an updated pin where I was at. And my logic was this: one, who's going to mess with you in a hospital? Two, if somebody does mess with you, you're already in the hospital. You can like army crawl in there. Like somebody will come and rescue you. So as a single woman in my late 30s, I was like, yeah, this is my game plan. It's still something I would advocate for.
This is
Um,
so
yes.
smart. This
So
is
that's
so smart.
why
I
waste my
love that.
money on like a
Emergency response.
$70.
Everyone
Yes.
that you need is there.
No one needs a hotel. You watch weird TV. It's a scratchy bed. You don't feel like, I'm like, no, the back of my car. It was great. It really worked. So
What
that was
was the
my
most
adventure.
rewarding part of this road trip?
I think that the road trip was a reminder that I can, create my own calm. I can be the person who
Mm,
gets the joy in a sunrise or a sunset or a random, gas station with little trinkets and old mom and pop, making ice cream. Like that's enjoying the world. I don't have
yeah.
to get on a plane. I don't have to show my passport. It doesn't have to be some tropical Instagram worthy. It can be anywhere in the United States of America, and there are nice people. There are
Mm,
kind people, and I'm in control of that experience and that freedom. And I went out, not quite knowing what I was doing, and every little step a little bit more got excited, or head to hair. I'm not too far from here. I mean, I love college football. I drove into Alabama just to see that big stadium. I had the most random Greek food in Mississippi. I went to New Orleans for the first time by myself. I had a great breakfast with my uncle who has since passed away because I was driving through town. Like
mm,
those are the things that I got to just make happen in my life, especially in a time where life was still weird. It was, we were still 1 year into the pandemic, and
yeah.
at least on the West Coast, life wasn't really back to normal. And
Mm-mm.
my professional industry of events sure wasn't either.
Yeah. What I love about this story is like you were truly listening to yourself, and without necessarily having a solid plan, you went and did the thing that you needed. You GTFO'd. And
Yep.
I'm so glad you did that. And at the same time, I'm hearing something that I know to be so true about you. And it's something I leaned really hard in when I left the corporate world. So one of the things I hated about the corporate world, and one of the signals where I knew I was doing the wrong thing, was per our conversation the other day and blah, blah, corporate speak, blah, blah, wet blanket, please, like, please bring more, what's the indoor lighting, cubicle, indoor light. It was the worst environment. And one of the things I hated about the corporate world is I could never truly be myself. I always had to do the corporate speak and do all the proper prim things. And I realized that the more I showed up as myself in the world, the easier it was to attract other people like me. And it's hard to show up authentically and vulnerably as yourself because we live in a freaking hostile world in which everyone wants to cut everyone down, especially when they see you doing well or being happy or whatever it is you're doing. But I have found that time and time again, it is worth it. It is worth it to be vulnerable and to be yourself so that I can capture and find more people like you. And I'm so glad that you continued. You like, this is who you are. Like, I just love hearing this story. But I also want to hear the low moments. And so I will share
Ooh.
with you my GTFO. I had a year in which when I became a creator, I was like, 2022 is going to be my year of yes. I don't really know what is really I'm capable of as a creator, but anything that's like cool, like not just anything, but things that are cool, I'm going to say yes to it. I traveled so fast and so hard in 2022. It was disgusting. Like I was everywhere and nowhere. I was all these really cool places, yet not, I was physically present, but not mentally present a lot because I had just too much going on. I was moving too fast and my body gave out on me. And I had an opportunity to do one more cool travel trip. And then I was like, I need to go to what makes me happy and what fills my soul, which is the pajamas. I went to the Bahamas and I flew drones. I had an opportunity to fly drones out there. I flew drones and I went paddleboarding every day. And I lived in the house that the original writer of 007 or James Bond lived in. It was really cool. It was right on the beach. And every day, like I would just fly my drone and I would go stand up paddleboarding by myself. And this is what an entire month of recuperating looked like for me. Obviously, there's a lot of highlight stories in there. I'm going to share my low light, which is actually something that came out of World Domination Summit. And for those who are listening who are like, what the heck is World Domination Summit? I originally thought it was going to be like a bunch of powerhouses of like people who are trying to take over the world. But like, it's actually something more powerful than that, in which it's people who are not okay with living a conventional life and want something else, and like are willing to listen to those signals and try something else, like leaving their previous career in education to see what else could fill your soul and fill your cup. And when I was at World Domination Summit, their final one that happened in 2022, that was one of the things I did traveling fast. I heard a story in which a amazing athlete broke the world record for walking across Antarctica, one of the crazy continents, completely under his own power, like pulling his own sled. It was like a 327-pound sled. It took him like 40 days to do it. And he, in the end, was going to run out of food because it was totally self-supported. And the only way he was going to make it was by doing 12-hour walks every single day. So he would just trudge through the snow with his sled for 12 hours. And coming out of the pandemic, he encouraged people to go do your 12-hour walk. And totally no music, no phone, totally disconnected. And it doesn't mean you have to, go walk a marathon or something, like whatever that means for you, but be out in the world, in nature, on your own, disconnected, doing a 12-hour walk. And I did this while I was in the Bahamas. I walked for 2 hours and I was like, fuck this, it's hot. Like walking in the Bahamas was so hot. I started before sunrise and I was just like, I can't, it's too hot. And so I turned it into, basically I did like 5 hours of walking and 6 hours of stand-up paddleboarding. And I went out on the water. And I had this moment in which I was out on the water and there was a rain cloud that was coming in and I was trying to race back to the land before this thing came in. And I had this moment in which I just started crying. I like could not stop crying because I knew I was doing the right thing for me, which was going to a place, the ocean, that completely filled my soul. And I gave myself an entire month. I said no to all the other opportunities I had. And I listened to what I needed in that moment in time, which was to feel the freedom of the sky with my drone and to be on the water on this paddleboard and alone and with myself, because I am not an extrovert. I am an introvert and I needed to recharge my batteries. And this low moment, I probably cried for ugly cried for like 2 hours. And I recorded the whole thing. It's actually on YouTube. You can watch me crying on the water. It was a really beautiful day. Anyway, that was both a very low moment, yet at the same time, you have to be able to rise from the ashes as a phoenix. You need to have those low moments also. And so that was my high to low moment. Go ahead.
And there's such power in acknowledging the low moment. Yes. Every single person listening to this or that should be listening to this has low moments. Maybe it happens deep, dark, curled in your bed. Maybe it happens after you drop off your kids to soccer practice. Maybe it happens when your husband or wife or partner leaves and shuts the door and you just can't do it anymore. Like, who knows, right? But what is ever gained by not acknowledging that to yourself and then to others to get help and support? I'm all for therapists and coaches and shamans and energy work and whatever you need. Sometimes it's an adult summer camp. Sometimes it's a 10,000-mile road trip. Sometimes it's a crazy paddle board and walking adventure in the Bahamas. Like, do what works for you, but not doing anything to me is the worst thing ever. Like, you're just going to be stuck in the mud and the gunk and the funk. And like, I'm sorry, life's too short. We are not guaranteed X amount of minutes or X amount of days or X amount of hours. So if you are in a place where you are not happy, you are not healthy, you are not lit up, you are not sparked, change it.
Immediately.
Yes. And
we are in control of that. Change it.
Exactly. There's so much we can be doing. And you know, like when you were kind of saying earlier, like we do live in this society where people are so quick to cut you down or look, like call out the flaws. It says so much more about them than it does you. Yeah. Like they hurt people. Like the people in the world who are lifting each other up, who are, promoting each other, who are sharing, who are celebrating. I was just with a friend the other day and she'd met a cute guy out at the bar and I'd overheard her tell like 5 of our friends this and we were driving somewhere. She goes, "Oh my gosh, Vanessa's probably being annoyed listening to this." I go, "Heck no." I go, You're my friend. When you're happy and winning and excited, I am happy for you. Like, shout it from the rooftop, sister. You know, I'm looking for that kind of a love. If you think you might have found it, hell yeah, let's celebrate it. Right. And so I
So
think that
true.
it's so important that we acknowledge the shit, the crap, the hard stuff, but then you go and you celebrate the good. Right. But if you
Yes.
hide all the hard parts or you don't bring out the vulnerability, it doesn't nobody wins from that, because I also know by sharing the hard parts, the depression, anxiety, the leaving husbands, wives, money insecurities, weight issues, whatever it is that you deal with, by you sharing that then gives permission someone else to share,
That.
someone else to get help, someone else who might pick up a book or make a therapy appointment or have a courage to ask you about X, Y, or Z. So
Hell
that's
yeah.
why, to me, I put it out there. And sure, there's still stuff that I don't put out there for everybody or keeps deep inside me. And eventually someday, hope I work through it all. But for now, yes, I would rather be vulnerable and raw and authentic and say, hey, this is what you get, because I know that that's what's helped me with others. And I know that people have said that's what helps them.
It's so true. It's so true. When your flame is shining bright, when you use that to light someone else's, whether you are encouraging them or giving them permission by sharing your own challenging story, it's all about that. Yeah, it's all about that. Hell yeah. Speaking of that, low
there's this
moments.
there's this and here's the one thing, like, I remember this when I was even in high school. It's like, when you know someone's story, you can't judge them and hide, you know what I mean? Like, even the people that you would meet that you think, oh, we have nothing in common. Really? You don't have moms?
Yeah.
You don't have favorite foods? You don't have dreams? You haven't been, fell off your bike, like had a special dog or animal? Like, you do.
Yeah.
We're still people. We got to connect. So the
We are
highs and the lows.
all connected in some way. That's so true. Yeah, it's so true. Really, like, we need to just show up with our heart on our sleeve all the time. You don't know who else you can help. I mean, so much of what you've said is why I started this podcast in the first place. So many people tell me, like, wow, I would never guess, like, seeing you out there adventuring as hard as you do, that these are the challenges that you have. And it helped me to acknowledge that, I'm feeling something similar, or I'm having that same kind of challenge, or I'm having those signals that it might be time for a change. And you got to listen to them. A lot of people tell me when I talk about why I burned out in 2022, so many people are like, oh my gosh, it would take me like a year to work through that or to get over that. And I'm like, yeah, it would have taken me a year too. But instead I acknowledged it, listened to exactly what I needed, and got over it in a matter of weeks. Like, if I didn't listen to myself and give myself what I truly needed, I would be the person who was just struggling inside. It wouldn't show up as my own authentic self to the world for quite some time. But I wanted to move past that as quickly as possible and in the most graceful way for myself as I could. Which the Bahamas will solve all problems in the world.
I'm sure we could put that on a t-shirt.
Facts.
But again, it's you knowing what works for you, right? Like, nobody's journey to healing or recovery or burnout or getting over divorce, it's not all the same either, right?
Yeah.
And so like there shouldn't be, I remember like people being like, what do you mean you like quit teaching and bought a one-way ticket to Barcelona? Or what do you mean you took a leave of absence? And I was like, yeah, this is what worked for me. This is my journey. This is my process, and I'm sure there was judgment, but the real people who loved me, they just wanted me happy and healthy. They wanted me to have that spark again. They wanted that excitement. They wanted that energy back. And so that's where, and it is hard. I love people. I love relationships, and they ebb and flow. But at the end, the people who are the most in your life at whatever point, they also want the best for you, and they're going to support you however that is.
Facts. All right. I like this. Actually, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. Actually, let's do a quick little side note real quick. Talk to me about your love for pickles.
Oh my God, girl. I love me some dill pickles. Actually, I love all pickles. Dill was my first love. This is a great, this is really actually a perfect segue because I have been really busy doing a bunch of events the last few months, traveling all over here, there, squeezing in some fun, but probably just primarily work stuff. And a lot of the work is, I was flying across the country and long days and stuff. And I was home and I was just like, looking at stuff on Instagram, probably, not doing my laundry or some emails or something. And all of a sudden I was like, I love pickles. I love pickles so much. Pickles bring me so much joy. I like randomly follow certain pickle like Instagrams. There's a festival. It's called like the Big Deal, like DILL, like you're a big deal. Yeah. And I just was like having the most silly, like I started resharing and then I was like, I'm going to go live and just tell everybody how much I love pickles. And then I used to like buy a lot of random domain names. And then I think the new thing of that is like Instagram handles, and pickle_influencer was a legit like available. And I was like, how has no one bought pickle? You don't even buy things. How has no one like written this down as their name? I don't even do my own Instagram well. I mean, I do it enough. But now I also, not only am I Vanessa Jean Tharp, I also am pickle_influencer. Trying to work on a merch store, maybe a pickle deal. I really just want people who make like sweet pickle things, like pickled beans, pickled beets, pickled earring, whatever. Just send me some. Maybe I'll promote them. I don't know. Yeah, that's us. I love pickles. It brought me joy, so that's what I did one day. And then
why the F not? Why the F not?
And are like, oh my God, this is so damn ridiculous. Of course you did this, Vanessa. I'm like, yeah, I did. And it brings me a lot of joy, which today is the day we are recording this. I have already been notified by multiple people. National Pickle Day. I was like, oh yeah.
I wish I had a pickle in my hand right now to cheers like, you.
Cheers pickles.
On National Pickle Day. Oh wow!
I got to figure out who can deliver pickles the quickest. So if I like just wanted to send people pickles, like.
This tickles my fancy. I like that.
Tickles your pickle. Better watch out.
So at pickle_influencer is where you can find this style of content. Yes. I love that. Okay, hold on. I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you know I asked this question on my podcast, but answer it in any way you would like to answer it. Are you a badass? Why or why not?
Oh, hell yeah. I'm a badass.
Tell me why.
Why? Because I live a really great life that is with intentionality, and it's a lot of fun, and I help people and I make the world a better place. I mean, I grew up camping, right? Which is funny because I live on a lake, on a mountain, in a forest. So basically our home is camping. We legit have like a fire pit with marshmallows. And snipe hunting, if you've never done that, I'll take you snipe hunting. But the thing about camping is you leave your campsite better than you found it. And to me, that's the ultimate badass move. You work with people, places, things, you leave it better than you found it. Or you at least try. You got to try. That. So heck yeah, girl.
Hell yeah. So you've made hold on. Let's bring it all back. So you made a really big transition after the pandemic into the life you have now versus life you had before. What has been the biggest change in yourself or learning that you've had about yourself, about your new life versus your old life?
Yeah, that is, I technically left education before the pandemic. So I had about a 2.5 year runway. It was like this trajectory. It was going great. And then everything got all swirly whirly. And I was asked if I wanted to move back and teach first grade. And I was a high school teacher. I'd left. And I was asked to move back to my small hometown. It's a beautiful place called Oak Ridge, Oregon. And I said yes. And the reason I said yes, one is a really good friend, mentor, kind of big sister, Erin. She was like, Vanessa, it's first graders. You love it's relationships. You love people. You could do this. And I was like, you know what? 20 little 6-year-olds actually sounds like a lot of fun. I'm sure to some people it sounds crazy. And then being closer to my family and friends, that were here. And so I think the biggest thing that has happened was just moving from a higher paced life in a bigger city. I lived in Portland to a one stoplight little town where you walk in anywhere and everybody. And I've definitely increased the amount of volunteer work I do. And it takes a little bit different to plan, going to get groceries and the, stuff like that. I don't have the amenities I had, but I have beautiful nature all around me. I have amazing community members. There's a decent poverty level here, so there's always a way to help out or support. And I'm happy I can use my gifts and skills and passions to do that in my town, but I get a lot of love and support back. I mean, it's a great place to be. And I think to me, it's just like the biggest, I don't know how you phrased it, but like the biggest change is like my environment, and it was not what I expected, but it is exactly where I needed to be because I listened to what fills my heart up. I love looking out at the lake. I love running into people at the grocery store, or the gas station, or the local bar, and just being able to, connect with them. And then also I know that now the world has opened up and I can still do my big events. I can do coaching and consulting. I can travel, but I get to come home, and this is really home for me.
Yeah. You reinvented yourself and came back in a way that is so right for you. But it took all the things to find the way that you wanted it to look in the end.
Oh, for sure. And I think, moving back here wasn't really, it's like, I was like, oh, someday, when I get married or have kids. Well, I don't have either of those still, but I'm still back and it feels good. So,
yes. And tell me, where can people find you?
Yes, well, I hang out on Facebook a lot, Vanessa Jean Tharp, Jean, and I'm on Instagram. I have a website, but yeah, connect. Christine has my full permission to connect me with any super rad humans, and we're excited. There's a lot of good stuff coming up for this next new year of 2024, and so I'm feeling good about it. Things to look forward to.
And all of that will be in the show notes available for you. So please connect with Vanessa, because there are some cool things coming up that both of us are going to be involved in. I'm excited for it. Thank you for doing this with me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I love Vanessa. And one of the things I think is so important is to share your story, both the good moments and the bad moments, because when others hear it, they might hear something that inspires them to fill in the blank, right? Listen to the signals that they feel in their own lives that might need a change, or make the change, or realize that the decision is right for them. And by sharing your story, you don't know what kind of impact you can have. If you found some value in today's episode, please share this with somebody. Connect with me, connect with Vanessa. And in the meantime, go forth, be badass. We'll see you in the next adventure. Ciao.